Hello. Well, thank you for taking the time to look at Planify. It's an exciting product. We hope you feel the same way. And we're going to start by just kind of giving you an overview and walking through some of the characteristics of the software. At first glance, you might see something familiar, and that is, of course, on purpose. We know that many of you have been frustrated with the scheduling software that are in the ERP systems that you may be using, or maybe you've gone to a spreadsheet method of scheduling, and that can be very cumbersome and hard to use, especially when you have a lot of volume and or complexities and multiple people, and so that would require multiple spreadsheets. All that becomes a very complex situation to handle. So that is why we created Planify. So let's start by looking at how Planify is configured. As you might see now, it looks like a spreadsheet, and of course that was on purpose, and you can see how it works here. So, and I've got certain fields, if you will, that show certain information. Of course, this one here has been designed for what I want to see, and you notice it's got a line going down here because I also have information over here to the right. So just like a spreadsheet, you can freeze certain views and characteristics so that you can, of course, zoom in and out or roll your screen up and down, all right? So some things that probably are quick to see is that I've got this thing called a priority over here. So I might, in fact, only want my work being scheduled by due date. Or what I might do is use due date as a criteria and then be able to change that by just moving this up and down the priority. And what that does is it makes sure that that is the scheduling criteria. It goes through priority here, all right? Like I said, you can actually use due date or other elements to provide a priority that makes sense for you, all right? Now you may notice some things over here, for instance, the areas that you might want to filter. So just like you can in a spreadsheet, you can filter, all right? So if I wanted to look at a certain part number, if I wanted to look at a certain customer, let's just do that quickly over here. Now if you started typing, you know, if I put in a 1 here, it shows you the customers with 1 in them, all right? So just like a spreadsheet. So if I just said I just want the customer with 1, and of course there's my list of orders for that customer, or work orders for jobs. However you describe them, we call them work orders here. So you notice that I've got, you know, release date, start date, and a suggested start date too for every one of these two. I can then just say, click on this again, and it clears that filter, and I've got all of my work order list here as well. Some other information you might find handy is you notice I've got a probability characteristic here, and I've got, of course, I've got my lateness showing here. So you notice that here I've got one that's 6 days late, and of course the probability of that making its delivery date is pretty poor right now. So it does take a look at number of criteria when it does create that probability. It looks at other information, like for instance the remaining work and the wait times, and all that criteria is given to you in a probability characteristic. So when I am looking at this list of work and I want to go look at what areas I should be concentrating, this would be a good way to look at it too as well. Of course, the ones with the red here and the number of days late, that's something we want to concentrate to as well. Okay, so let's continue to kind of get you more acclimated to how this software is set up. This is a multi-user, multi-screen approach to as well, just to kind of quickly show you that it has that. So if I have users, I can set up different criteria for the type of things they can do, what they can and cannot do, update, delete, view, characteristics as well. And in that same area too as well, I can set up whether or not I have a sandbox. The sandbox is the ability to take a copy of this data, bring it into an environment where you're not affecting the current production. So you can do forecasts into the future, add in projects or work orders that might be large work orders, and you might want to see whether or not you're going to be able to accommodate those as well. Okay, so let's take an even closer look now. And of course, as I forgot to mention too as well, I've got my completion percentages too as well for the actual work order. But I'm going to dig a little deeper and walk you through the configuration of a work order. Now, if you notice, here's when I clicked on that arrow, here are operations. So you may call them routings. This is exactly what they are. And of course, you see the statuses of those two as well, the completion percentage as well. A neat feature in our software is that we don't require you, although you can do a sophisticated login or sign into a work order, and I'll show you that quickly over here. You can come in here and just go ahead and say, let's start this work order and start the process of that. And you can do a manual entry here for when I start and finished it, etc. on here, or you can just hit set up or start here too as well. But just to come back over to this stage here too, you could actually come over here and say, hey, you know, now we've got 6 done now. Okay, how many more do we finish? All right, so I might say I want to put 2 more finish on there. And what it does is it updates not only that, but entire enterprise gets updated too as well as the schedule. So if I do get, you know, and I call that the easy button, you can actually come in here and just tell me how many you've completed. I don't have to go through a sophisticated entry or a logging approach or a log in, log out of work orders and operations. You could simply just do that. And that might be a first phase in your operations too as well. So again, let's dig a little deeper also in here as far as the configuration of an operation. All right, so I've got my description, characteristics, nothing unusual there. I got my predecessor, successor relationships in here, so I could have any way that you're manufacturing, divergent, convergent, ultimately I can have parallel operations, all kinds of things that you're going to want to do. We can do that. So we may be looking like an easy product, and we are. But understand, underneath the covers, we can handle the most complex scheduling criteria that you have out there. So to continue on that, so if you notice, I've got some other criteria, like the quantity for that operation doesn't necessarily have to equal the quantity of the job. So it could have different quantities as well. If you look over here, I've got multiple characteristics, for instance, the setup time, the run time, teardown time, move time. Some of these things are important for you to configure when I am configuring an operation as to how it can be measured from a timing perspective. And if I click on this one here too as well, you can see that, so looking at this more detailed, I can actually have different time units for many different areas of the routings, if you will. So you notice I've got 45 minutes here, 60 minutes here, I've got 2 hours here, 75 minutes. You can use that, and of course over here you notice that I have an outside service characteristic too as well that can be in days, for instance, in hours, and so it's up to you how you configure that. And of course you notice I've got my estimated start and finish for each one of those operations, as well as any wait time and user-defined fields as well. Now understanding that this software was built again to make it so that it's like a spreadsheet. Everywhere we can, we made it so you can update data. So if I needed to update the quantity here, let's say I wanted to make sure that I make 12 of these because I typically have a scrap issue, all right? So you could do that, put that in there. Again, it's going to go against your hours and minutes over here. All these kinds of adjustments can be easily done. And by the way, you should also know that I could export this entire data set here, and I'm going to show you that. It's bringing it up over my other screen here, but you can see I brought it over to here. It's all the work order and operation data that goes to the building of all of my production backlog. Now understand that when I do that, I can also take that spreadsheet and update. So if I have to do mass updates or multiple updates, I can do that and then re-upload it right back in here. And again, you can actually run the environment and see whether or not it's affected you in any way. And I'm going to go through that in a moment here. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you is the configuration of how or what you're going to assign to your operation. So you could simply use a work center approach where it's just a machine-oriented schedule, or you can get more sophisticated. So I'm going to click in here to kind of show you some of the sophistication that can happen in here. It's got, believe me, every kind of characteristic you're going to want or need, and it can have as many resources that are required to do an operation. Resources being a person, a machine, a tool, anything that required at an operation we can schedule to that. So in this case here, notice that I've got a saw operator, And I could have a list of different saw. I've got Joe and Joan. The S1 and S2 is designating the shift. Joe is shift 1 and Joan is shift 2. So I just wanted you to see that. We can handle multiple shifts and primarily schedule across all those whenever there are changing shifts. And of course I have saws, I have multiple saws. So in this case I'm saying, hey, use 2 saws and use a saw operator. I'm not going to lock them. I could say I only want Joe to do this, and that's how you could lock who does this. All right, I could say I only want this on saw 1 and 2. Again, all of those things are adjustable by you. You notice I've got a usage percentage. That means I have this Joe that's going to be utilizing these 2 machines, so he's monitoring 2 machines, all right? So I could save that, and I could do that, and of course, next time I run my update, it'll actually give that and provide you that data. Okay, so let's take that next step in our life cycle of managing your production, all right? So let's assume that we are in a production meeting, all right? And so what we're going to do is start to review, and I'm going to go ahead and start that process. I'm saying, okay, hey, I'm looking at my red jobs, or I'm looking at any characteristics that might have changed. Let's see what we've got here. Anything that needs my attention? All right, well, maybe let's just take a look at this one here. Well, you can see I'm 20 days behind schedule on that one there, but it is a quoted status, and we just found out from that customer that they are ready to place an order. They only need 10, so I'm just going to make 10 of these right now. All right, so that obviously will adjust what's required. And I also may want to look at some other criteria to kind of hone in and get it done on time. So you might actually look at, for instance, the outside services and say, okay, hey, I've just found out heat treating can actually do it in a 2-day turnaround, and hit save, all right? So you can make those adjustments. Just think of this as a production meeting, and I'm going to be adjusting and changing all these and committing or not committing. And that's another reason why we have this thing called pretend. If we hit the run on pretend, it actually allows you to see what the effect is of those changes are. Do I have any issues, any concerns or challenge with that too as well? And so far we're not seeing any challenges, so we're going to go ahead and continue with this, and now we're going to commit this. At the end of our meeting, we're just going to say run on active. That will commit it to the entire enterprise. All right, so you can see we've done better as far as our on-time delivery performance, and of course, as long as the plan continues to work well, and of course, we're also going to be able to see that dynamically as a probability would be changing by a minute-by-minute process step too as well. So let's take that. Let's take the next step. I just wanted to show you a couple of details I didn't show you earlier. For instance, if I were to take a look at a different work order down here, so I'm just going to go ahead and look at this one here. Let's take this one here. You can also have a Gantt chart. Pick the wrong one. Let's pick this one here, and use a Gantt chart so you can see effectively how your product is being scheduled through a visual kind of approach too as well. So you can see how it's coming together. So you do have some graphical characteristics or Gantt chart approaches as well. Okay, so I think that should give you a good idea of how our software is different and good and exciting, and hopefully you'll want to review our software, understand it, and of course we are here to help you. If you did have some data that you'd want to share with us and you want to see it in our software, of course, it's pretty easy. You give it to me in a spreadsheet, we can actually import it right in, configure it a bit to do that, but not a big deal. We can show you how that all works, and then you can actually try it for a bit to see if it can help you. And I hope you do take us up on that offer and schedule a meeting with us just to do maybe an introduction first, but ultimately we'd love to get you to do a proof of concept to verify that we're going to help you, add value, and provide you with and help you with your on-time delivery performance as well.